Hello everyone, and welcome to my Sketchbook Challenge tour for 2020 to 2021. Let's get right into it. For the first one is a mascot for Nintendo. For this one, I tried to incorporate a sort of boy and his pet dynamic, or boy and his dog, but in this case it's more of a boy and his red panda. I also gave the red panda a special ability to fly using his tail, so he could attach to Norman and carry him over any obstacles he may face. In challenge, we were to use dots to make an image. So using pointillism, I chose to use the creature known as Charizard from Pokemon to create this imagery, especially with him shooting fire the way he is. It got a little bit tricky to depict the fire especially, but I'm overall happy with the way it came out. The third challenge was called Get Your Fill. We were to depict a few images together, but they couldn't be touching. And the theme that I chose for this subject was The Simpsons. It was a little bit tricky for me, especially depicting it in all ink. Along the way, I tried to depict certain items that a lot of fans would know from the show, so whether it's Bart's skateboard or a squishy or a slingshot, just to give it sort of an extra element. Overall, I'm happy with this piece and the way that it came out, especially if you look at each character, they have different expressions and the way they act. By the time it was over, I would say I worked on it for about 3 hours, just spread across maybe a few days, putting in a character here and there. But I put in about 29 different characters. Try and guess which ones are there. I bet you can't get them all. I really enjoyed this challenge, and I'm thinking about trying it again with other different franchises. Now on to challenge number 4, which is gestures. I'm pretty familiar with doing figure drawing, so this was right up my alley. Even though we're in the midst of a pandemic, I was able to find different photos online to use as reference, especially with different weapons such as swords and a staff, or not to mention a bow. Overall, I'm happy with the way some of these images came out, and it's a good jumping off point for me to use in the future, especially if I wanted to do some action scenes in my comic books. Number 5 is Frame It. For this one, I used a picture of myself, and then I tried to change my landscape using pencil and ink to sort of give myself more of a metallic feel, or just some type of robot aesthetic to this piece. For the next challenge, we had to do an insect, and since hornets were in the news, I decided to choose the murder hornet. I found a lot of interesting information on this species, such as people consider them a delicacy. They also have a tendency to eat other bees, wasps, and other animals. On to sketchbook number 7, which is maze. I designed a maze around some of my brother's favorite hobbies and interests, like Sonic the Hedgehog, golf, and pizza. The good thing is that since I did it digitally, he could go over it as many times as he likes and try to get to the end. And then if he wants to do it again, I can print out another one and have him go through it Number 8 is feminine eyes. With this one, I tried my best to take not only one set of eyes, but try and get a different assortment of eyes. From women that wore glasses to more contemporary eyes, even ones that came out of an anime, I had a wide assortment to choose from and work off of. Number 9 is animate the inanimate. For this one, I took a cue from Toy Story and basically took household items that I use every day, whether it's a phone, a computer, or even a dumbbell. I enjoyed the way that I came across in this piece, especially the way the characters interact with each other. Number 10 is muscular eyes. For this one, I looked up different eyes belonging to guys on the internet. Some of them were more anime-like, while other ones were more realistic. This practice has helped me to improve my structure when it comes to designing different eyes instead of just the same ones. Number 11 is reptiles. With this piece, just like the hornets before, I decided to choose a certain lizard, the spotted leopard gecko to be precise. I was taken aback that they have different colored spots and they're very territorial. Number 12 is no pencil, and I'm very used to this type of work. When I would take commissions at conventions, I would usually have to do it in pen just to get it done quicker. And for this challenge, I decided to do the Transformer Bumblebee. The hardest part has always been drawing a robot and the intricacies of a vehicle. Number 13 is overlap. With this one, I also did in all ink without pencil, and I chose different celebrities and movie stars. There's about 18 different celebrities. It was a little tricky with some of them, especially shading and trying to put them all in an image, but I'm really glad with the way it turned out. Number 14 is plants. I was actually in the doctor's office for a checkup when I saw this nice plant sitting on the side, so I decided to copy it and draw it out. Some of the branches were a little tricky, but I'm glad the way it turned out, especially with the shading on ink and no pencil. Number 15 is noses. I decided to look up different noses using Google, as well as looking in the mirror to try and capture the noses as best I could. I enjoyed using my pencil to shade in and really give the form a lot of detail. I'm definitely coming back to practice this some more in the future. Next up, number 16 is birds. For this one, I chose a duck. Some interesting facts that I learned are ducks can live about 20 years, and they've been domesticated for over 500 years, which is a very long time for that type of animal. Number 17 is maps. For this one, I tried to make my own landscape area with different things that I liked. So from The Simpsons to video games to pizza and the arts, of course, I always wanted to try and add little hints and items that people can look for that relate to me. Number 18 is muscular hair. I try to look up as different as I can be when it comes to my images, so I looked up different male hairs, from straight hair to curly to tall hair. It all was a great test of my creative skills to try and match those. "19 is feminine hair. I did pretty much the same thing with the feminine hair that I did with the muscular one, pretty much looking up different photo references to use as I tried to draw and recreate the images of the hair. Number 20 is scribble art. Pretty much with this one, I had my family members do little scribbles in my book, and then I tried to use those scribbles to create different images, whether it's like a duck or some type of person. Number 21 was zombies. With this one, we had to pick a movie poster or some type of artwork and zombify it. I would have to say that this is one of my favorite pieces out of the Sketchbook challenge. Not only did I get to recreate one of my favorite movie posters of all time, but I got to change it and make it unique compared to the original. As you can see, it's Pulp Fiction, but instead of Pulp Fiction, I did gore fiction, starting off by doing a rendering of Uma Thurman, and then starting to add some zombie traits to her, so like an axe to the head, or her eating brains, or even her jaw falling onto the pillow. And then I had John Travolta's character lying on the bed as she's eating his brain. I also thought to add maybe Sam Jackson in the background as Jules, sort of like his head chopped off in the bed. Usually when it comes to my drawings, I go over it with a ink just to thin out and add a little line weight with some more lines. Then I go in and add some shadows, I do the flat colors, and then eventually I started adding some blood and some ripping of the actual, kind of like it's an actual novel or book. I teared it up a little bit with the image and had little marks and things just to make it a little more degraded. But overall, this was probably one of my favorite pieces, and I hope to do more of them. Number 22 is male caricature. I'm very used to doing caricatures because I used to do them on the convention scene. And what I decided to go with here is Matt Busch doing sort of a stormtrooper outfit. So pretty much I started off with some rough sketches, deciding on which facial expression I wanted to go with, when I finally hammered down this sort of yelling pose and stuff, like he's doing a charge into battle. And then I drew up the body and then went over it again with a rough sketch of him holding a blaster in a stormtrooper outfit. I left some impact marks on the actual, like, sort of like he's running and placing his foot down and impacting the landscape. And pretty much what I like to do with my drawings is just keep going over them a few times till I get something that I like, and then I go in with ink brushes. I do a pass over and then add some shading and light sources, and pretty much here it goes. And I also added in the You Can Draw Star Wars. But overall, these type of images can be a lot of fun because you can stretch and exaggerate the faces, and I hope to do a lot more. Number 23 is female caricature, and for this one I thought to do Rebel Wilson. Pretty much I decided to use a few images of her from both her movie roles and then some photos that were taken, and pretty much I try to go with sort of an upshot from the head and basically trying to match, like, sort of give it more an exaggerated pose as I tend to do. Originally I decided to go with the longer hairstyle that she sometimes is known for, and pretty much I went around and redrew the image a few times here and there just to get an overall feel for the structure. But then, like, as I'm going along, I try to exaggerate it a bit more, bring out the lips or the eyes and ears, and then halfway through I decided to switch up the hairstyle to sort of more of a bun and ponytail combination. And then I have her giving the peace sign, sort of like she's holding up and doing a selfie or something to that degree. I added in some highlight shading and then created sort of a gray tone background, and pretty much, yeah, it's a fun sketch. And I also added some fabric to the shirt, which I'm really happy with. But overall, I enjoyed this one and I hope to do more. Number 24, ears. With this one, I just went back to my sketchbook, broke out some photo references of people getting their ears cleaned and using different tools to go inside the ear and look at it, and it was a fun look into the structure of an ear. Now for 25, I chose to do fish. Overall, one of the best things about this sketchbook challenge is that I'm testing myself and improving my abilities. I hope when things get back to normal to go to more zoos and do more drawings of animals in the wild. Number 26 is optical illusion. This one was a little tricky one because I needed to perfect it a little bit more, but I started off with drawing an anime character that I really enjoy called Yu-Gi-Oh! Pretty much I drew the protagonist, Yugi Moto, and I go over it with a sketch and things like that, but as I go along I wanted to contrast it with something, so I decided to choose Morgan Freeman as the other sketch to imprint upon. So I have him staring with that, with the noble stare that he usually gives in a lot of his films. And I laid the different sketches on top of each other. And I always use reference when it comes to putting down the flat colors, especially when it comes to anime characters. So I have the Yugi character drawing down, and then I decided to put in his favorite creature that he likes to summon, the Dark Magician. And I take some colors. Sometimes I get colors from statues, or sometimes I'll bring in like the actual artwork and just try and cherry pick the colors. But yeah, I have the image going, and then I have Morgan Freeman with his outlines. If I could go back, I'd probably change around, maybe add some darker highlights onto Morgan Freeman to make him stand out more. But I'm enjoying it, and I'm gonna give it another try down the road. Next up is Phenomenal Lips. This is another great thing that I'm glad that he told us to practice and work on, because I was really getting the keys of like doing the different motions, especially looking at different photos as reference to nail down the lips, whether it's pouting or just a smile. So I realized I need to work on it more. Number 28 is muscular mouths. Same thing with the lips. I took different photo references to get the jawline, especially of different guys, whether it's with the lips or with the hairstyle, if they're stubble or mustaches. But yet another good practice technique that I want to practice more. Number 29, single line. Now this was something that I was used to doing contour lines, so I chose Baby Yoda giving sort of the force gesture. The most difficult part was sort of like the internal of his clothing and outfits without trying to go outside the lines, especially adding fur. It was really tricky, but a lot of fun. Number 30 is hands. Yet another good practice tool, and I'm glad that he put it on the list. I have to practice hands a bit more, but it's just like any other challenge. If you keep practicing long enough, you'll get the hang of it, and I really enjoyed some of the poses I put it in. Number 31 is monster. I decided to do a cute penguin, but sort of give it this feeling of when it gets angry, it turns into this massive creature that scares off poachers to defend its family in the icy tundra. A fun one, and I can't wait to do it again. Number 32, Meet the Artist. Pretty much it's self-explanatory. So my name is Kyle, I'm 33, single. I like comics, cartoons, anime, volunteering, arts, pizza, red pandas, cosplay, and museums. Dislike lack of empathy, lateness, communication, lack of integrity, judging. Number 33, dinner. I chose to choose one of my favorite foods, pizza, and I added a garlic knot on the side with the pizza cutter and sort of my hand reaching for the slice. It was pretty fun, especially studying the image of the pizza. Can't wait to do something where I'm studying more food in my art. Number 34, toys. Yet another one, I think this might be towards the top of the list, is because I got a chance to redraw some of my favorite action figures. Everyone that I put in this image is an action figure I had at one time or another when I was younger, and since I grew up in the 90s, there's a lot of different pop culture references, so pretty much I had that Ultimate Warrior figurine, the Power Rangers flip head toy. I had Beetleborgs, Batman figurine, the Mighty Ducks. Pretty much all these different figurines were some of my favorite from my childhood. The Goku. I really think I nailed down the actual look of the figurines, pretty much like the way they are as toys, because that was the whole thing, is trying to nail down not just the character themselves, but them in action figure form. So whether it's a plush or a Gumby figure or even this X-Men and even the Furby, it's just trying to nail them down by the structure of the figurine. So I had to keep looking over and over at the reference that I had, especially how the figures were looking and seeing where the light source was coming from. But yeah, it was just a lot of practice. I especially enjoyed like when I started to color them in, and it really brought back some good memories of me playing with these action figures over and over again. But yeah, I bet I'm not alone, especially when it comes to this challenge, that it was one of their favorites, especially if you go back to your childhood. But yeah, it was a joy to bring these to life, and I hope to do some more. Number 35 is music, and for this one we had to choose a song that we liked and basically try to get the essence of that song. So pretty much with this one I just decided to choose Prince and his song I Want to Be Your Lover. If you really go back and look at it, you can hear the beating of the drums, the riff that he does on his guitar, and pretty much playing the piano while he's singing with the flashing lights. So I tried to encapsulate that as much as I can. I first started off with drawing him in a rough sketch, but then I decided to add some silhouettes of him beating the drums and playing the guitar or tapping the drums. And then I saw that as I was listening to the lyrics, sort of the story of like him trying to court this woman as she's been hurt in the past. So I tried to add some silhouettes of a woman crying, some people laughing here and there, and him coming to her rescue. And then I tried to spruce it up with some lighting and coloring. I also went over the lines of the silhouettes that I drew of him and things to make it a little more pop. Then I go back over to his face and add some more skin tones. One of the good things that I'm testing out now is some skin brushes. But by the end, I added some more highlights and stuff to give it this real flashy pop look that if you see in the music video, like he's bathed in all this lighting, and it really came out good. This is another top contender of one of my favorite challenges, and I hope to do more. Number 36 is mechanical insects. For this one, I chose a red ant, but not only was I trying to create a robot version, I sort of created a mech, kind of if you took the anime Gundam and just replaced the robots with giant insects. So I came around and had sort of like the ant like raising its head up high and things about to like launch an attack. So I tried to add some mechanic tools, and this goes for any type of mechanical robot thing. It could be a little bit tricky, especially adding in sort of like items and making like the armor shine. But I sort of wanted to have him like his head raised and stuff, and I opened up his chest to show the pilot inside like commanding the robot, and I had some reds and some yellows and to bounce off each other, and then I added in this highlight to show like he's powering up his laser in his hands and in the mouth mandible. But it came out pretty good, and I want to give it a more try later down the road. Number 37 is Pathway to Adventure. With this one, I got to test out, I use Procreate, so I got to test out one of the tools on that, which is the drawing guide. And with it, I use the isometric grid to sort of have this house like in a 3D sphere. So basically, as I'm going around, I try to build this house and sort of create this like design. Because I got a chance to look at some of the Family Circus comics and other imagery to sort of match like this whole map design, whether it's like Where's Waldo or something like that. And I created just little things here and there, as like having the kid coming down and getting ready for school, and then going into the garage in the back, and then running across, maybe eating breakfast, and then just hopping over the couch and stuff with grabbing his backpack and on his way waiting for the bus to come. But it was a really enjoyable experience, and I look forward to trying it again. Number 38 is Comic, and this is another favorite of mine because I got to test my mantle, especially because I'm working on a comic of my own. When I originally posted up, it was all just black and white and line artwork. So over the course of the last couple of weeks, I went to touch it up. And pretty much this is what is known as two-tone coloring, where I have one color pretty much dominating the scene, but having highlights and shading. So this is a comic that I'm planning to continue. It's what is known as a graphic memoir based on my own life of my condition known as ulcerative colitis, and sort of not only the impact of dealing with the condition in my daily life and career and health and everything, but also on my friendships, and even especially dating and relationships will play a big role as well. But overall, I'm looking forward to working on this book and moving and hoping to bring it out in the next couple of years. Number 39 is Sci-Fi Reptiles. This one, what I tried to do was use a turtle, which is another favorite animal of mine. And so I first started off by looking at photo reference to jot down the turtle and actually look at him and nail down the physical representation of the turtle. And then I went in and started adding small parts to him. Like a sort of cannon on his back and stuff, and him having a visor and maybe a mechanical leg. Once I was happy with what happened and how it came out, I started putting in some colors. And then what I try to do with like robots and shimmer and stuff like that, I have a glowing brush that I like to use in Procreate and add that into it. I added some scales and tried to use some brushes that I had for patterns to get that sort of unique look as he's firing his rocket. But overall, it was a good, fun test of like trying to get the realism of a turtle with the cyber fact of robots. Number 40 is Trees. This was one of the rare occasions that during the pandemic I had the fortunate chance to go outside. And what I did was I took a snapshot of a tree and then try to draw that one tree out and things. And then what I'm trying to practice more is perspective in my images. So I use perspective to take other trees that I had photos of and line it up within the same vicinity of the original tree that I started drawing from photos, and pretty much going to the park. So I added them together and had 4 different trees. I tried to make them a little bit different, add a little bit here and there for the shading and highlights, and just overall get the balance of the trees, which has really been enjoyable, especially trying to nail down like the texture in the branch and say the bark and things like that. But overall, I'm looking forward to drawing more and more things like that. Number 41 is lettering. I don't have too much practice in lettering, even though I think it would help me much better, especially with my comic work. So I hope to practice it a bit more, because it was pretty fun making my own different shapes and tools to represent the different words. Number 42, steampunk birds. With this one, I took some key visual looks at different steampunk outfits and things, and I'm very aware of the actual scene of steampunk, and pretty much what I tried to use is an owl, because like as soon as I saw steampunk, it reminded me of the owl from Clash of the Titans and things, but I wanted to take it in a different direction and add a little top hat to it. And I have 2 keys sort of like on the sides of him and things that like you wind them up, and that's how he flies and everything like that. I had a little clock in the center sort of, but then like I changed it around to make it sort of like a hypno type of thing where he could blast people and things, and just to create sort of mechanics. And again, I tried to make it like metallic and shiny and things like that. Number 43, Legify. This one was another one that was probably one of my favorites to do. I'd done some Lego artwork before, and if you get a chance, look up an artist his name's Dan Wiesenmeyer. He does Lego artwork, and pretty much what I did was I tried to find a property that wasn't in Legos yet, and surprisingly, they, over the last Power Rangers has been around for over, I think, 30 years plus, and surprisingly they have not made Lego sets built around the franchise. So I decided to look up some models and rough images from the different communities in Lego and pretty much see what people were thinking of, and I tried to add like my own spin on it and things. But I'd done Lego artwork before, like I did a poster of the Avengers poster that was for Endgame and Infinity War, and I done some other superhero ones. I done the Incredibles in Lego form, but this has always been a fun one, and I look to do more in the future. Number 44, Mashup. This was another fun one for me. What I decided to do was do Invader Zim meets The Simpsons. The most difficult part with this is not just translating the character into the other style and things, whether it's translating The Simpsons into Invader Zim or vice versa. It's trying to grasp the actual, like, the character traits and getting them down, but also using the character designs that they have in both franchises. So with Invader Zim, the one that I was having the most difficulty with was Dib and things, because I originally had like a Bart Simpson type of head, but then I realized Dib has a bigger head than his other counterparts, so I extended it and tried to work my way around it, and in a way I tried my best to capture him in that style, especially with his big head that's bigger than normal. But overall, I really enjoyed this part of the Invader Zim half of the mashup. then I had so much fun drawing it, I decided to do the same with The Simpsons. So this one was a lot easier, especially because I had the Art of Invader Zim sketch book, so I was able to look at character model sheets and things like that. But you can find a lot of this stuff online as well. So I went around and pretty much tried to grasp the characters. I think the one I had the most difficult time trying to render was Marge herself. Like, everyone else seemed to capture like how that character looks, but Marge was difficult, and by the time I got to the point where I added in the inks, I was able to change around her mouth and things like that. But overall, I'm happy with the way both of these characters' designs came out and things, especially seeing them in different styles, and how it was just, it really brought back some good memories, and I hope to do more in the future. Number 45, expressions. I think this was another interesting one. Like, I tried to capture different expressions, looking at different faces and things, and even looking in a mirror and trying to capture like how it look at different things, so sad, angry, depressed and things. It's just trying to capture the looks of like how it looks on the face, and it's pretty fun, especially since a lot of Disney animators do that for a living. Number 46, visual diary. This was a little tricky because, especially with the virus going on, I had to try and be creative. Luckily, there was a huge snowstorm and I did a lot of shoveling that day. I worked on like my comic and I played a few video games, and I had my pizza like I do once a week or once every other week. Fantasy Mammals is number 47. This was pretty fun, trying to give like sort of a kung fu red panda look with a shooting star, but overall it's fun to create characters and I want to try it again down the road. Number 48 is Heroes. So I decided to do a female superhero, sort of where she gets into an accident and her legs are basically not usable anymore, so her father decides to make her robot legs of like sort of like a cheetah, so it gives her a sense of super speed and quickness and things like that. But pretty much I tried to, what I tried to use was some model sheets from like Justice League and try to capture like that essence of like her being very strong and like very active in terms of like, okay, I'm gonna go out and rescue the city and everything. Working on the character designs is always a lot of fun, and trying to build the character herself, it was a joy trying to nail down some of the metallic feelings on the legs as she's sort of running towards the viewer and things. But yeah, if I could go back, I'd probably maybe change around the perspective a little bit more, but hey, you know, they say practice makes perfect, and if I keep at it, I'll get better at it. Number 49 is villain. With the same thing with hero, I didn't want to take an establishing character. I wanted to try and create my own, so I started off with this crouching position, but it wasn't enough, and then I sort of created this more menacing crouching position, like the villain's going to attack and things, and her hair is kind of like tousled over her face, kind of like really grungy look and things like that. And then I decided to have her like leaping out into like the sky and things and sort of giving a menacing look, just 3 different variations on it. So I started inking it and I changed around the leg because I wasn't too happy with it and things, and pretty much just going over it with the inks, going over it with the heavy outline. Then I added the color and stuff, 2 clashing colors and things. That I tried to tone down the red and things because it started looking like Christmas and everything like that, and I wanted to go with something more menacing, so I just made the colors more muted over time. But I'm happy with the way it came out, especially with the purple skin. And the final one, number 50, is Mad Foldins. There's a lot of history behind this style, and I really enjoyed it because I got to test out not only doing the artwork, but also trying to grasp doing the actual sentence structure and things. So for this one, I tried to do Matt Busch as sort of Alfred E. Newman, and having a mashup, having him break the pencil as he's writing Sketchbook Challenge number 50, and just trying to have fun with it overall. So I go in, have the inks, I add the colors, and then I use my skin brushes to sort of craft and mold the skin and kind of come out with this sort of goofy look and things like that that Alfred E. Newman has, but also still having traits of Matt in the picture. But yeah, it was overall just having the little ink blotches and things going on and stuff. Just it's not perfect in terms of like Alfred E. Newman, but he's not perfect in things, as everyone knows. And then I did the actual sentences, which it was just so hard trying to come up with the actual sentences, like for like what leads to Sketchbook Challenge 50, and that was probably the most difficult part of the scene. But I also added some of the Star Wars figurines inside the head. But overall, I really enjoyed this one as well. And that does it for my Sketchbook Challenge. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you.